Hunter, if I could have you and Son of American to come up again.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Sorry about that.
Cool.
Just open Q&A, if anybody has any questions or anything like that, now's the time.
So I have a question, but really quick, it's funny that you mentioned something about how to illustrate to who you're arguing with about what's going on. And I was, while you were saying it's a lot of what Hunter addressed, this is exactly what's going through my mind. So when you talk about the wage gap, you almost kind of jumped over saying first you have to illustrate that the wage gap is actually an earnings gap, right? We never get to that point because people do what he said, they put their fingers in the air. And so, in addition to that, not just do they put their finger in the air, but then they scream these things. So if you put Mr. Logan's name into YouTube, you know what comes up as the first thing? It's his name, and then it says coon. Okay?
I actually noticed that when I searched your picture.
That's everything gets shut down immediately by epithets, by calling you a racist, misogynist, Islamophobe. And we never get to that next step of the conversation. How does that happen?
Well, the first thing that has to happen before what I was talking about can happen is you have to get the other side to stop screeching for 5 seconds to then have that conversation. And it's not having the conversation and understanding the opposition that's hard, it's getting there first. So we're still not there, so we can't even have this conversation where we talk to people, we talk about their concerns because they're too busy screeching, calling you a coon, and calling all of us racist, sexist. So we haven't gotten there yet, and I really don't know how you get there. I don't know, obviously there are a ton of people here, and how do we get more people here to this place where we're willing to have that conversation? And that's a really difficult thing to do when you, like you said, have this huge victim culture where it is profitable to be a victim. It's profitable to have somebody hate you. So how do you overcome that? And that's the big question.
I think that part of what could happen to, well, like I said, communication, but it seems to work a lot better on an individual level. So, for example, like I used to have a job at a clothing store, and there was a girl there that was just a flaming liberal, like completely opposite views with everything. But since we were at an individual level, we were able to talk, and we still debated and argued our points, and we never really found middle ground, but we did find, like, I consider her to be my friend, she considered me to be her friend, and we were able to still get along, although we didn't really agree with things. So, yeah, I think communication is key, but I think that it helps a lot more when you're on an individual level, because if there's a crowd protesting, screeching, feminists outside, you're probably not going to go out there and just have a friendly little debate and change their mind.
That's true. So, yeah, you're right. If you can get somebody on a friendly level, then you can have the conversation that I was talking about, and I guess that just has to happen thousands and thousands of times before we get to where we stop the screeching, and the screeching has to stop being profitable for people.
So I have a question. The facts are always readily available. I mean, a quick Google search and you can debunk most of these myths. But how are they kept alive, and is there any combating that?
They're kept alive by repetition. If you repeat something, steal a saying, if you repeat something enough times, it becomes the truth. And like I said, with the wage gap, for example, even when people hear, oh, it's an earnings gap, they can immediately flip on you and say, yeah, but it's because of societal pressures and sexism that women won't go into STEM fields. So they can flip it on you. They have a backup argument. So it's not even about the wage gap. It's just about there's a backup argument to the backup argument to the backup argument that's moving the goalpost. And there's always a place for it to go. So that's part of why it stays alive.
I think it also stays alive because there's people in positions of authority who also are repeating these things. I mean, even Google had like equal pay day or whatever, and then Elizabeth Warren was like repeating it and stuff.
Right,
so,
and Obama said 1 in 5 women on a college campus will be raped.
Yeah, like crazy. These things are for some reason being like stated by people in authority or people with a lot of sway. I mean, I think that's why it keeps on happening, I guess.
The Huffington Post moved it to 1 in 3 now. So.
Oh,
okay.
really? I thought it was 1 in 4.
I can't
1 in
keep
3?
up with how many people
Yeah.
are.
Every Tuesday, 1 in 3.
Yeah. 2 and 1 women are raped. Yes.
So back to the basic idea of bridging the divide. With respect to the mainstream media, they're very guilty of gatekeeping. Anything, either Fox News or CNN anywhere, if they choose to report on it, it elevates the importance of it in someone's mind. And their greatest sins usually are of omission. But I wonder at the personal level, how do you think you deal with that? Because on a personal level, an individual's own consumption, they do their own gatekeeping. Conservative spends all their time in Milo Yiannopoulos' site, Daily Wire, Free Republic, etc. And a liberal spends all their time helping the Post. They wall themselves off, and they do that voluntarily. How do you think you deal with that?
Well, you have to, I think it also comes down to conversation and convincing individuals that you know to start consuming other forms of media as well. Even if it's just like read Huffington Post to laugh at it. You can present it that way if you want to, but if all of us can talk to 2 people and convince them to start broadening their media horizons, that's over 100 people that they can talk to 2 other people. You're talking about thousands of people just in a small chain. And I think it starts at the individual level. So, what do you think?
I'm kind of with you on that one. It's kind of difficult to get people to read other news sources, especially when they've already discredited them in their mind. It's a tough one.
Yeah, and I think it's also hard too because even as a conservative, I always take everything that Fox News says with a grain of salt.
Same.
So I think that the rise of YouTube, if we want to toot our own horns, has been something that has helped a lot of people because we are not beholden to a huge media organization. When somebody watches my videos or your videos, you're getting us, and you're getting what we think, and you're getting what Roaming Millennial thinks, what Anthony Brian Logan thinks, and we're all different. And the thing is with us, if we think that we're wrong about something, we'll come back and we'll say it and we'll apologize, and there's more interpersonal accountability for us. And so I think that because that is taking over as far as media consumption goes, and it's more about the person and less about the organization, it's keeping everybody accountable, and I think it's broadening their horizons and the different places that you can get news from.
I actually agree with you, especially with YouTube, because people, I know like when I do research for my speech or whatever, I pull from a bunch of different kinds of sources. So, and a lot of times I show those on screen. So if people choose to watch a YouTube video, they don't know what source is going to be used right away, so they can't discredit it. And then by the time it's over, they've already seen a bunch of different sources from a bunch of different news organizations. So that's actually a good point. I think that, yeah, YouTube could help a lot.
Yeah, and it's also easier to talk to us directly and to say, hey, I think you got something wrong, you should take a look at this. Whereas if you're sending that to Fox News,
yeah, Fox News is like, all right.
They're not gonna, that's gonna get lost, and for us, you have a much better chance of us actually looking at something and listening to what you have to say. So I think that YouTube, even like Philip DeFranco, who's much bigger than any of us are, he's got 5 million subscribers. People watch him for news because they know that he will hold himself accountable and he will apologize and he'll try to be fair and balanced.
H3, another
Yeah.
H3 got a big story wrong just the other day. And right away they removed the video and posted a new video apologizing, explaining why they did it. And so that's the thing, is people already are starting to hold YouTubers as more accountable than the mainstream media.
Yeah.
So I have a question from the live chat. I'm guessing it's for both of you. When was the most recent incident of the speaker's mind being drastically changed on an issue, and what caused that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I can think of when I changed a few people's minds. But,
Yeah, I don't know that in the past couple of years I've had any huge ideological shifts, to be honest. I think so I listen to That Guy T a lot, and if you know That Guy T, taxation is theft, all of that kind of stuff. And I used to be a little bit less libertarian on that. And then, as I started working, I started getting paychecks, and a couple years ago, when you start getting money taken out of your paychecks, and then you start looking where it's going, and like Roaming Millennial touched on in her speech, when all of that's going towards, these huge entitlement programs that you don't necessarily agree with. So I'm a lot less authoritarian when it comes to taxes now than I was a couple years ago, but that's probably the biggest shift, and that shift wasn't drastic.
I mean, was the question for the last few years, is that what you said?
Just no one.
I had to extend it out that
The,
much.
Yeah.
the,
because
the
I
most
haven't-
the most recent
Yeah.
instance.
The most recent one I can think of is probably gay marriage. Before I even was doing YouTube or anything, I was a lot more like, I guess, Christian conservative on the whole issue, and like was super anti-gay and stuff like that. But and I didn't really watch a YouTube video that changed my mind on that. It was more just I just started meeting people who were gay, and I kind of just changed my perspective on them, and I realized like, oh, these are people too. There's no reason to be like so bitter about everything. But that was a couple of years ago, so that's the closest one I guess I could think of.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Got another question.
Sorry, something to share. Go for it.
You mentioned Islam and, how we really can't talk about it too much because usually when you mention Islam, people like to tell you, okay, you're Islamophobic off the bat. I actually saw one of my friends debating that whole thing once, and one of his biggest offense is terrorist attacks, like for example in the States, is something like 0.0003%, like it's minuscule. And that's his basis for like, you shouldn't even worry about it, talk about it, things like that. And I'm wondering what you think about like the fact that people will use that as defense and say, well, it doesn't happen much, so why are we worrying about it?
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point. The way I see it is still happening, maybe not that much in the United States, but when you look at it from a global standpoint, it's happening all the time. And the problem I have with Islam is it's not so much about the amount of attacks that are happening, it's the fact that so many attacks happen under the same name. So, I mean, we could have a crazy person, like the movie theater shooting a few years ago, like that was a crazy person, an individual who went mad and killed people, and it was absolutely tragic. The difference with Islam is these tragedies are happening under one religion. Well, under more of an ideology, I don't really consider it a religion. But that would kind of be my argument to that. So I do think it's important to focus on because Islam is a threat to the Western policies, and I mean, we're already seeing it in these other like European countries where they're having mass Muslim immigration, and that place is just going to hell where that's happening. And so I can understand that point, like, oh, it's not happening that often in the U.S., so why worry about it? I am worried about it because it's actual attacks that are happening all over the world under the same name, and it's all like within the same ideology, I guess.
Yeah, real quick, in one of my sociology classes, they actually brought that up and put terrorist attacks next to deaths via car accidents. And the question I would pose to anybody who would bring that up is, when was the last time a Toyota said that they were going to kill you and take over your country? So if there's also intent there as well, and in the U.S. we don't have that many Muslims, so it's not as big of a problem here, but if you look at where there are a lot of Muslims, that's where the problem is. So just because it's not here doesn't mean that, if we open the floodgates, it wouldn't come here. Of course it would.
So I have a question personally. What are your two's opinions on the alt-right and what they have contributed or not contributed or taken away from this battle to bring back free speech and the open marketplace of ideas? What are your views on the alt-right's contributions or detriments to this struggle?
Well, I think with the alt-right, it definitely tests our dedication to free speech, because I think most of us in this room are not. If you're talking about the white supremacy side of the alt-right, I don't think any of us in this room are white supremacists. So we say we want our ideas tolerated, and then you also have to say, are you willing to tolerate ideas that you also find important? So there's that, and I don't think that we should shut those views down, because I think that's still an important conversation to have, and debating a racist should be one of the easiest things you ever do. But I think they are easily used as a way to say, look at all these extremists, and I don't think we should be scared of having extremists on the other side. I don't find that to be a scary thing. There are not that many of them, not in the U.S. anyway. It's more of a problem over in Europe, where there has been much more Muslim immigration, and there wasn't a whole lot of diversity of skin tones prior to that. And then you have all of the problems that came with the ideology of Islam. So there you can also see where the rationale is a little bit more as well. But I think the people throw it in your face as there are Nazis who agree with you. And like, you know what, I'm pretty sure Hitler would have liked pizza, but that doesn't mean that I agree with everything he ever did, so.
Guilt by association.
Yeah, so I think you have to, you know, keep a level head and don't be afraid of having an extremist thrown at you. It's okay.
I mean, I really have to agree with most of what she said. I mean, when I see this, like, there's two alt-rights in my opinion. There's the one alt-right that's actually the white supremacist extremists, and then there's the like edgy 12-year-olds that are saying they love Hitler on the internet that the mainstream media seems to get so scared of.
The great meme war.
Yeah, the
Great meme war.
jokes and all that. But yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree as I disagree with most of what they say, like the actual alt-right. And I do have some alt-right supporters, I'm sure of that. And I get called alt-right sometimes. However, as much as I disagree with them, I still think they should be allowed to share their opinions, as wrong as they are. I still think they should be allowed to share their opinions because I believe in free speech for everyone, no matter how controversial the opinion is.
And plus, if we're terrified of those kinds of ideas, then that just gives them validation.
Exactly.
So if you, I think Vernaculus said it in his speech, you know, if you say you can't have this and it becomes a forbidden fruit that people want to listen to, so why not just give it a platform and let's see how it goes?
Yeah.
You know?
There's been examples of that actually.
Yeah,
Where people, there was a, Milo Yiannopoulos talked about that actually. There was some, I think it was in
The
UK.
the British National Party.
Yeah, Nick.
Yeah, there was some racist person that was going to get their own show, and everyone was trying to shut it down. And instead, they just gave him his own show, and he just lost all his supporters because people saw him and they're like, "This guy's an idiot. I don't want to be."
Yeah, I
associated with
think
this guy."
people need to trust people to not be stupid.
Yeah, because well, that's another problem is we're told how to feel all the time. Also.
Yeah, so
This will offend you.
so when people heard somebody be wildly racist, most people disagreed with them. Being exposed to that idea didn't then make them racist. It just gave them those
It
ideas.
further proved that everyone is not racist.
Yeah, and so they were able to hear the ideas and then they were able to actively disagree with them. And I trust all of you to make your own decisions, and I don't think that I or the government needs to feed you certain ideas for you to come to conclusions that make sense. So.
All right.